Hi, I'm Jon Kirkman. I'm a broadcaster and journalist based in the UK. And I'm just going through things. In fact, this has been a series of things which started off during the first part of lockdown. But I'm sort of getting the idea that we're coming out of lockdown, albeit slowly. But I'm just going over things that you may have missed, or maybe that I think you should sort of delve into, or they deserve your attention. This is the autobiography of Steve Hackett. And of course, Steve Hackett, as you know, guitarist in Genesis for a long time, been a solo artist since 1975. His first album came out while he was still with Genesis, Voyage of the Acolyte. He left Genesis in 1977 and continues to make great records and perform all over the world to this very day. This is the book. It's called Genesis in My Bed. If you read the book, I'm not going to give it all away. If you read the book, you will find out why it is called A Genesis in My Bed. The great thing about this particular book is that of course, it mentions Genesis and his solo career and his touring and things like that, but it's a really personal book. It tells you about his childhood, how as a child that he used to have incredibly vivid dreams, or I suppose nightmares. In some ways, that's probably very good as a creative artist, but as a child, it can't have been great. The other thing about Steve is, again, maybe people don't know that his family emigrated to Canada when he was a child. Now, here's a funny thing. When I did the very first Cruise to the Edge, which is the Yes Cruise, Steve Hackett was on the very first Cruise to the Edge. And of course, Steve had worked with Chris Squire on a project called Squacket. So when we were doing a Q&A session with Steve, Chris Squire came along. Now, Steve was talking about emigrating to Canada, and Chris Squire said, actually, my family were thinking of emigrating to Canada. And I pipped in by saying, my family emigrated to Canada but came back before I was born. And Chris Squire said, wow, we could have been Rush, which I thought was quite funny. The book is published by Weimar Publishing, and they've got a really great reputation for publishing great musical related books and other books as well. But some of the photos in here, there's Steve and his mum. There's his mum, and there's, of course, Steve and his brother John when they were just little boys. Oh, don't they look sweet? There's some great photos in here, of course, all from Steve's personal archive. That's a picture of Steve and his brother John. Don't they look the pair in the 60s there? Well, Steve's looking very, very, I suppose, scholarly, I think is the way there. And of course, in the early days of Genesis, now I actually interviewed Steve about this book, and I said, it's quite funny really, as you were younger, you looked a lot older than you do now. And I said, were you hiding behind the glasses and the beard? And he said, yeah, it probably was a case of that as well, but it was the fashion. But of course, Steve these days looks incredibly young. I mean, he looks younger than me, and he is older than me. There's some great photos, of course, which you would expect. Steve with Genesis in the dressing room. I'm thinking that is possibly 1976, 77, I'll tell you there. Genesis on stage, of course. And that is during the recording of Please Don't Touch. That's Richie Havens. I'm not sure whether they were actually recording How Can I would imagine that is the case. Steve playing his beautiful Zamatus 12-string guitar. Tony Zamatus made guitars for a lot of famous people, and Steve actually wanted one of those guitars. He made guitars for people like Ronnie Wood, George Harrison, Eric Clapton, Mark Bolan, Tony T.S. McPhee from the Groundhogs. If you had a Zamatus guitar, you'd arrived, seriously, and Steve always wanted one. And that photo shows him playing it in the studio during the recording of Please Don't Touch. Like I said, the photos in here do go right the way up to the present. And also, that was where Steve was performing at the Royal Albert Hall a few years ago. It's always a prestigious gig for any band or artist to perform at. That was the reunion of sorts of Genesis when I think they were working on the archives, and they did some interviews and they all got together. And that was the classic lineup of Genesis. Last seen together, I guess, at the Milton Keynes Six of the Best show, but the last time they toured together was 1975, of course, when they were promoting the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. That's a great photo of Steve at his wedding to Jo, his wife. Fabulously personal photograph there. Beautiful memory as well. Again, lots of photos of Steve. This is what he did on his holidays, essentially. He's been all over the world, him and Jo, and he gets to some really interesting places. Absolutely amazing places. Yeah, he is in, I presume that's in Egypt, in front of the pyramids in Egypt, on a camel. Lawrence of Arabia, anyone? It's a bit too far. I think it's a bit too far west to be Arabia, but yeah. And again, some wonderful photographs in here. So the book is a great read, but it is more of a personal thing. And that's one of the reasons why I like it. Sure, like I said, it does mention all his solo stuff and some great stories in there, including how the title of the book came about. But what I like about it is the fact that it's a very personal account of his life, which is not your average rock biography. They tend to tell you, well, I was in the studio on this day doing this and I fell out with the engineer or whatever. There's elements of that in here, of course, but what I do like, as I've said, is the fact that it's a very personal memoir from Steve. It's a lovely book, it's well written, and some nice pictures in there as well. It's through Weimar Press, and it's out now, so do please go and get it. Thanks for watching.